back on my channel Education with Shweta. Today we will discuss one of the chapter related to grade 8 human resource. What are human resources? Before starting this, we all should know about the resources. Previously we have categorized resources into two categories: natural resources and the man-made resources. As the name suggests, natural resources which we are getting from the nature, and the man-made resources in which human interference is there. So what is the role of human in changing these resources into the useful things? So people are a nation's greatest resource. If you look around yourself, you will find there are a number of people who are helping you in number of ways. So same as in the country, people, those who all are living in a nation, are its greatest resources. Nature's bounty becomes significant only when people find it useful. It is the people with their demands and abilities that turn them into resources. To better understand this, I'm going to give you one example. There are a number of resources which are available on the earth. But if there is no man to utilize these resources, then there is no mean of having these resources on the earth. To better utilize these resources, one should have men or a human being on the earth to convert these resources into the useful things. Hence, we can say that human itself becomes a resource that turns the available resources into the useful things. So human resource is the ultimate resource. One of the important thing related with the human resource is the population should be healthy enough, educated enough, and motivated enough so that they can contribute in the development of a nation. So one of the another topic related with that, distribution of population. Now this time we can easily understand that humans are very important factors in the growth of the country. As we already know, not equal people are living on each places. So distribution of population also differs. The way in which people are spread across the earth surface is known as the pattern of population distribution. The way in which, you have to understand this thing, the way in which people are spread across, how people are living in the different parts of the world, not only a single country but all around the world, how they are living, what kind of their preferences. More than 90% of the world's population lives in about 30% of the land surface. Some areas are very crowded and some are sparsely populated, because there are number of factors which affect the distribution of population. So there are some areas which are very crowded. On the other hand, there are areas which are sparsely populated. There are few people who are living over there. The crowded areas are South and Southeast Asia, Europe, and Northeastern America. A very few people live in high latitude areas, tropical desert, high mountains, and areas of the equatorial forest. With this point, you can easily identify the people most of the time prefer to live on the places where each and everything is easily accessible. Very few people always prefer to live in the high latitude areas, even in the desert area, because if you look at the topography of these areas, you cannot find easy accessibility of the roads, of the basic amenities. So people most of the time do not prefer to live in these areas. That is why these areas are sparsely populated. Many more people live north of the equator than south of the equator. If you remember the globe, north of the equator, most of the countries are there. And even in the south of the equator, the areas which is actually having less number of people who are living in this part. Almost three quarters of the world's people live in two continents, and these continents are Asia and Africa. 60% of the world's people stay in just 10 countries. So these countries are Japan, Russia, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Brazil, Indonesia, USA, India, and China. We already know that India and China are the most populated countries in the world. India is the second highest one. Another topic is the density of the population. Before starting this topic, we will understand the meaning of density. Density is actually the number of people living in a unit area, and that unit can be expressed in a square kilometer. So in a very simple way, we can say that how many people are living in a per square kilometer. So population density is the number of people living in a unit area of the earth's surface. It is normally expressed by the square kilometer. The average density of the population in the whole world is 51% per square kilometer on an average. On an average, if we see the density, how many people are living in a per square kilometer, so it is about 51% are there, those who are living in per square kilometers. So average density of population in India, if we talk about India, we are living in India, so how many people are there on an average? The density is about 382% per square kilometer. There are number of factors which actually affect the distribution of population. So we have categorized these factors into two categories mainly. These are geographical factors. Then the second category can be social, cultural, and economic factors. So the sub-categorization under these topics are: geographical factors can be categorized into topography, climate, soil, water, minerals, and geographical factors that affect the distribution of population as a whole. Then the second categorization is the social, cultural, and economic factors, and these factors also affect the distribution of population. So one by one we're going to discuss about each one in detail. So the very first factors which affect the distribution of population under the geographical factor, it is the topography. So topography is actually what people always prefer to live on plains. Why? There are a number of reasons. Each and everything is easily accessible in the plain areas. So people always prefer to live on plains rather than mountains and plateaus because these areas are suitable for farming, manufacturing, and service activities. So that is why people usually prefer to live in the plain areas. The Ganga plains are the most densely populated areas of the world, while mountains like Andes, Alps, and Himalayas are sparsely populated. So these are the mountainous areas, and mostly people, those who are not comfortable with the climate of these places, never ever feel comfortable in living in the mountainous areas. Then the another factor is the climate and the soil. Climate is actually what phenomena? It is a natural phenomena. People usually avoid extreme climates, whether it is a hot or a very cold climate. So people usually avoid extreme climates that are very hot or very cold climates like Sahara Desert, polar regions of Russia, Canada, and Antarctica. Then soil, a fertile soils provide suitable land for agriculture. Most of the people for their livelihood totally dependent upon agriculture. So people prefer to live in those places where the soil is fertile enough. So fertile plains such as Ganga and Brahmaputra in India, Huanghe, Sangjiang in China, and the Nile in the Egypt are densely populated. Water and minerals. Water. People prefer to live in the areas where fresh water is easily available. The river valleys of the world are densely populated while deserts have spare population. The reason is that water is not easily available in these areas. Minerals. Areas with mineral deposits are more populated. Diamond mines of South Africa and discovery of oil in the Middle East lead to settling of people in these areas. Then the another categorization is social and cultural factors. Social factors. Areas of better housing, education, and health facilities are more densely populated, for example, Pune. Then the another factor is the cultural factor. Places with religion or the cultural significances attract people. Varanasi, Jerusalem, and Vatican City are some of the examples. So these factors also affect the population. Then the another categorization is the economic factor. Industrial areas provide employment opportunities. For the livelihood, people have to depend on number of things. For the employment, number of opportunities, large number of people are attracted to the areas where are the employment can be easily available. So for that, Osaka in Japan and Mumbai in India are the very good examples, and these area, that is why densely populated areas. People live here for the better opportunities. So now we will discuss about some of the factors with the population and history of the world population, how all these things affect. For an extremely long period of the human history, until the 1800s, the world population grew steadily but slowly. Large number of babies were born, but they died early too. This was as there were no proper health facilities. Farmers were not able to produce enough to meet the food requirement of all the people. In 1804, the world's population reached 1 million. 155 years later, in 1959, the world's population reached in 3 billion. This is often called population explosion because there are huge differences in the growth of the population. That is why this period can be considered as the population explosion. In 1999, 40 years later, the population doubled to 6 billion. The main reason for this growth was that with the better food supplies and medicines, deaths were reducing while the number of births still remained fairly high. The reason for the population growth steadily is basic improvement in the basic amenities, whether it would be food, even it would be in the medicine or in the number of terms in the other things. Birth and death are the natural causes of population change because population comprises the people, and births and deaths are definitely affect this population. The population increase in the world is mainly due to the rapid increase in the natural growth rate. Now we will discuss about the basic concepts which are related with the population. As we already know that thing, that births and death totally effect upon the population. Birth rate, total number of babies born every year per 1000 people in a population. Death rate, the number of deaths every year per 1000 people in a population. And how we will calculate the natural growth rate? The difference between the birth rate and the death rate of a country is called the natural growth rate. So that is why we can easily calculate that how many people are still living, still alive. So natural increase in a population occurs when birth rate is greater than death rate. How the population can grow? If there is a greater impact on the birth rate and the death rate is lesser than the birth rate. When birth rate is more than the death rate, this situation is called the population increase. So people are increasing one by one. We can easily understand this thing that people are including if birth rate is higher than the death rate. So population gonna increase when birth rate and death rate are same. This situation is called population study. When death is more than the birth rate, this situation is called the population decrease, because more number of people are dying, so the death rate is more, and less number of people are taking birth. So this situation can be called as population decrease, because less people are decreasing. That is why it can be considered as population decrease. So these are a few factors which are related with the natural growth rate. Patterns of population change. Population can be affected by many reasons. Patterns of population change. Population change means when people are moving from one place to another. Rate of population growth vary across the world. Although the world population is rising rapidly, not all countries are experiencing this growth rate. Some countries like Kenya have high population growth rate. In the other countries like United Kingdom, population growth rate is very slow. Population change refers to change in the number of people during a specific time period. The world population has not been stable. That most of the people are not living on a single place. By any reason, they are moving from one place to another. So this is actually due to the change in the number of birth and death. It can be, and births are usually measured using the birth rate, as we have earlier discussed how we can calculate the birth rate of a country, and how we can calculate the death rate of a country, and how we can calculate the natural growth rate. Deaths are usually measured in the death rate. So this is one of the example on the map which we can easily see annual rates of the natural increase in the terms of population. In India, population distribution state-wise as according to the 2011 census. So these are the people who all are living in our India. Population composition. Human beings constitute the population, but we have further categorized these population to understand the role of a people as a resource, because we are discussing human as a resource, human resource. We need to know more about their qualities. People vary greatly in age, sex, literacy level, health conditions, occupation, and income level, because some are rich, some are poor, some are female, some are male, some are illiterate, some are literate, some are healthy enough, and some are very having some kind of a problem. Health issues are related with them. So they vary in a very greatly difference. There are number of factors which actually affect these things. It is essential to understand these characteristics of the people. Population composition refers to the structure of the population. The composition of the population help us to know how many males or females and from which group they belongs to, how educated they are, and what type of occupation they are employed in, what kind of work they are doing, what their income level is, and health conditions are. In interesting way of studying population composition of a country is by looking a population pyramid. Population pyramid is actually a kind of a structure, a kind of a bar graph which shows an age sex pyramid. How many number of males are there and how many females are there. It shows the total number of population divided into the various age groups also. 5 to 9 age group, 10 to 14 age group, and it also shows the percentage of the total population subdivided into males, females, and each of those groups. The shape of population pyramid tells the story of the people living in a particular country. The number of children below 15 years are shown at the bottom and reflect the level of birth. The size of the top shows the number of aged people above 65 years and reflect the number of deaths. It also tells us how many dependent are there in a country. There are two groups of dependent, young dependents and elderly dependent. So how we can categorize these dependent into the two categories: young dependents below the 15 years age. So these groups actually constitute a category which can be called as young dependents, because for each and everything they have to depend upon their parents. And elderly dependent above 65 years, same as these are the people who are old age, and for number of things they have to depend upon their young ones. That is why, and this is how we have categorized these categories of dependent into two: young ones and the elderly dependents. The population pyramid of a country in which birth and death rate both are high is broad at the base and rapid narrow towards the top. This is because although many children are born, a large percentage of them die in their infancy. Relatively few become adult and there are very few old. So this is the population pyramid looks like. Males, females are there, and this is the age group. We have categorized 75 plus a very few people, and 0 to 4. This is the age group, and the people who all are living can be categorized to understand it better. Pyramid, population pyramid of Kenya, we have taken it as an example. Population pyramid of India. In the countries where death rates, especially amongst the very youngs, are decreasing, the pyramid is broad in the younger age groups because more infants survive to adulthood. Such population contain a relatively large number of young people, and which means a strong and expanding labor force. So this is the pyramid of India. How we have classified our population into the male ones and female, and further into the age groups. So another example of population pyramid of Japan. So the low birth rate is there, makes the pyramid narrow at the base. Low birth rate. If you look at this pyramid, you can easily understand, because there is a low birth rate, that is why the pyramid is not as much as broad as we have seen in India. So the conclusion, lastly, we need a kind of a population which is skilled, spirited, and hopeful young people endowed with a positive outlook are a future of any nation. So we in India are fortunate to have such a resource. They must be educated and provided skills and opportunities to become able and productive. So the population should be very much educated enough and provided skillful and opportunities to become able and to be very productive in the growth of our country. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you all like this video. Please do subscribe and share my video as much as you can.